Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to 22 West Radio. This is Beyond the Ropes.
I'm Ethan.
I'm Rob.
And what an interesting week for professional wrestling. Uh, were you able to catch the breaking news this past Tuesday
Wow.
on Daniel Bryan?
That was amazing. I mean, you would never have thought that he would be returning to action. It's amazing to hear that Daniel Bryan is healthy enough to be medically cleared to compete in the ring once more.
It was a little over 2 years ago in which we found out that he had several concussion issues that took him out of action and eventually led to his retirement. And for the past 2 years, he's been trying to get back. And finally, he's been cleared by WWE doctors, along with several other medical staff, to finally bring him back to in-ring competition. And what a comeback he had this past Tuesday on SmackDown.
And I mean, Daniel Bryan is an individual who really keeps, wow, considering the amount of, tell us about his lifestyle, the way he eats and everything.
Well, he was vegan for a while. I don't know if he's vegan anymore. And definitely, he's a health freak. If you watch any of the Total Divas or Total Bellas, you would see that he's very much into animals and into farm stuff. Very much earth friendly, I should say. And so his lifestyle is pretty different to most people's. And being, a vegan probably definitely helped him come back to in-ring competition. It's extremely different, and whatever he had to do to get back to the ring, it worked. And so, as wrestling fans, we're definitely lucky to have him back.
Yeah, and how long ago was his retirement? I mean, wasn't it more than like a year already, or 2 years?
No, it was 2 years. Wow. It was February 2016. So, and it was in Seattle, Washington, where in his hometown, where he had to call it quits, unfortunately. But, this past Tuesday, it was breaking news by WWE on social media, announcing that he was cleared to return to in-ring competition. And we saw some in-ring competition, not necessarily a match, but a little bit of a feud there, probably heading into WrestleMania against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Did you catch that?
No, but I find it amazing that, obviously he's medically cleared, but, you have to imagine even the fact, when he did retire, he had to vacate a belt, right? He was the current champion.
He was the Intercontinental Champion for like a few weeks. This was before his retirement. This was after WrestleMania 31 in 2015. And yeah, he had to drop the title, and then he was away for several months until he came back to officially retire. So yeah, getting back to Tuesday, essentially, he was attacked by Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, which will likely lead into some type of feud at WrestleMania. And he was actually showing some offense in the ring this past Tuesday, and he looked great. He looked like he hadn't missed a beat, and I look forward to seeing more of that for the several months to come. So we mentioned last week on our return episode, on our first episode here on 22 West Radio, that we would be talking about the women's evolution in professional wrestling, specifically in WWE. This started around 2014, really, where it picked up, where the formerly known as Divas Division became the Women's Division, thanks to a number of women's wrestlers that have captivated professional wrestling fans, and it really led to a snowball effect that has created some amazing moments for the women's division over the last few years. One specific match is the Hell in a Cell match between Charlotte Flair, the daughter of the 16-time world champion Ric Flair, and against Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. And that match was groundbreaking because no woman had ever competed in a Hell in a Cell match before that. And it's quite incredible what they were able to do. They did, went all out for that match, and it was an incredible match that led to several other firsts in the WWE. There was a women's Money in the Bank match, There was the Iron Woman match. This past year, the Royal Rumble was main evented by the women, as well as an Elimination Chamber match that happened just last month. And we could talk about a couple of women's athletes if you want.
Yeah.
Who should we mention? We mentioned Charlotte and Sasha. Bailey is a champion right now. We're looking at some.
That's amazing though. But yeah, there's been so many women that have paved the way for professional wrestlers, and obviously, we go really back. The fact that title reigns are very special. But when you look at the back in the day, that's so amazing that like the fabulous Moolah, like even her title reign back in the day. Wow.
She held the title for 27 years.
That's amazing.
I believe it was 27 years. There's some controversy in her behind the scenes, but we don't need to get into that.
Oh man. And I was so shocked. I understand that like in professional wrestling, especially with WWE being one of the biggest companies, that they have to they're huge on sponsorship. But obviously WWE has a tradition for WrestleMania. They have the Andre the Giant Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking forward to the fact that they did announce there was going to be a Fabulous Moolah match, but then they had to take the name out.
Yes, that one of their sponsors, or the sponsor for WrestleMania, Snickers, actually advised them to remove it after some fan controversy over a Fabulous Moolah. Obviously, doesn't necessarily have a clean record behind the scenes in her career. Not to get into too many specifics, but she definitely wasn't a fan favorite, I guess, during her time with other women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
And so even though she is respected in the ring, she does have a controversial past, and so WWE did have to remove her name from that Battle Royal. It is now just the first ever women's WrestleMania Battle Royal. So
Wow.
they could have named it something else. There were several names, like the Sensational Sherry Battle Royal that was being brought up.
So it's just the fact of who she was and the stuff she did that like they.
It was behind the scenes. It was. I guess we could get into it. She was essentially.
Because there was controversy even with the fact that originally the women's competition way back was going to be the Fabulous Moolah, and they changed it to Mae Young, I think.
Yeah, it was the Mae Young Classic.
And there was backlash with that too. They're like, hey, why are you leaving out Moolah too?
Right, but then there was also the fact that, she has a checkered past, and so that's why they moved forward with Mae Young. Also, Mae Young has been around, had a 70-year career.
Oh, yeah.
So her career was significantly longer than Moolah, which was at least, maybe like 50.
Talk about the most athletic elderly woman in the world who can pull off a Bronco Buster and stuff like that, all those moves.
Mae Young, oh my God. Yeah, the Attitude Era was without a doubt one of the craziest moments. Mae Young, a women's champion during her time, as well as someone who took several bumps in the ring during the Attitude Era.
And then talk about that table spot.
With the Dudley Boys on Monday Night Raw. Essentially being powerbombed off the stage onto a table, or a few tables actually, I think.
Oh man.
It was brutal looking, but she was, how old was she? She passed away a few years ago. She was 90 something. She was like early 90s. And so she must have been late 70s, early 80s when she took that bump. And yeah, she was crazy, but
It was all those funny segments of her trying to get with like superstars and stuff.
she was in a relationship with Mark Henry. In fact, speaking of Mark Henry, he was announced to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this week.
Long overdue.
Yeah, but he did just recently retire, so it makes sense why they're barely putting him in.
I wonder if it's just a thing where the deal expired, because just like Big Show, their active wrestler contract expired.
He's still an ambassador, I believe. So I believe his contract probably ended last year at some point.
And I think he was one of the biggest figures in wrestling, that he was always associated with that whole be a star, not a bully, or what is it called or something?
It's the Be a Star rallies,
Yeah.
kind of the anti-bullying campaigns that they do. He's definitely one of those ambassadors that has always represented you know, the WWE in that aspect. So
Yeah, and one of the few superstars ever to be associated with pro wrestling that actually had like an Olympian background.
he was in a strongman competition and
yeah.
the Panama Games, I believe, also in the mid-90s, where he won.
Wow.
You know, he won there, so before going to WWE, so he was a legitimate strongman, the world's strongest man, to be exact.
I think we'll always remember the segments where he freaking lifts vehicles and like pushes them.
Yeah, there was a couple of those. There was a car that he pulled a truck.
Oh
like
yeah,
a giant
all the
truck.
straps on him.
And he was pulling a bunch of that. He lifted a bunch of things, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
So
Didn't for a while he had like a weightlifter's belt that was like customized, like it said like world's strongest man on it for a bit when he wrestled, like when Brock first started, I think.
in the early 2000s, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, not just a gimmick, you know, the world's strongest man, but it was a legitimate name because he was the world's strongest man. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
definitely fit his personality and his character.
And talk about a superstar who, you know, I know that oftentimes superstars get repackaged, but he is one of the superstars who stayed committed to his theme song as well.
One of the best theme songs.
Wow.
I don't think we can mention the lyrics on here.
Yeah,
but,
obviously not.
But look up his theme song. It's one of the kind of empowering theme songs. Actually, it really gets you pumped up.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
We
to
can
listen.
mention the band name.
Do you know it?
Was it 36 Mafia, right?
Oh, you're right. 36 Mafia.
Yeah.
Are they still making music?
Well,
But
I mean,
they
it's
did.
always going to be iconic, that song, because of Mark Henry especially.
Absolutely, and it's always fun to listen to.
And you know, I know that he was one superstar who Vince kept always trying to say, don't retire, don't retire. And he kept on getting him to sign extensions.
He was a reliable worker, and so, you know, if you put Mark Henry in there, you're gonna get, you know, what you want from him, and so it
Yeah.
definitely someone that has, you know, well respected, to say the least.
I think one of the best segments in the history of wrestling was the fake retirement.
That was brought up. That is like probably one of his most memorable moments, if not his most memorable. But essentially, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, you know, prior to his actual retirement, where he came out and announced that he was retiring only for, at the time, WWE champion John Cena, who I'm sure many people know, came out and congratulated him and shook his hand and was ready to send him off when Mark Henry actually attacked him. And before that, Mark Henry gave a real, like, this was an Oscar-worthy performance speech where he was, you know, saying goodbye and thanking all the fans and everything. And he fooled everyone in that arena, and I'm sure everyone at home, including myself. It was, without a doubt, one of the most memorable moments in recent history.
Yeah. So many different things that he's done. Very few times he was actually got to associate with like factions too.
He was, well, when he was a heel, he was with the Nation of Domination, which was originally led by Farouk, also known, real name Ron Simmons. And then D'Lo Brown was in there, The Godfather, I don't know, was he going by The Godfather at that time? I don't think so, right? This was after. And then The Rock, obviously, right now, probably the biggest action star in movies and entertainment.
Yeah, didn't he at the time like he was still like Rocky Maivia, no?
He was when he first started, I believe he was still Rocky Maivia, and then when he took over, eventually he morphed into The Rock. But yeah, Mark Henry was the big guy for that group, you know, doing the muscle essentially, and so he was he built himself and built a star out of himself in that group.
Wasn't it X-Pac or was it Kim? Who was it?
It was
that-
X-Pac,
Yeah.
yeah, what you're talking about. When D-Generation X mocked them and dressed up like them.
Oh man.
And essentially he painted himself to look like Mark Henry.
And you know, I like that, you know, eventually like his attire did change. He was able to go through different attires because I remember there was a time where John Cena would like make fun of him for a bit because he had this bright red attire to copy MVP.
That's right. He started out with the red, white, and blue American theme, you know, because he was in the Olympics. and then he went through the nation phase, so it had kind of like the African flags and such, and then he went to more of a strongman with different variations of the kind of strongman, the weights and dumbbells on his gear, and then you're right, he went all red for a while, where essentially he had the World's Strongest Man logo on his back, and it was just all red. And he was teaming with MVP for a brief period, correct? And so they wore the matching red attire, which looked pretty funny. But yeah, definitely he went through changes. He also went through the Hall of Pain phase, which is a standout. I mean, it brought him the World Heavyweight Championship for the first time. And the Hall of Pain, essentially, he would induct victims of his into what he would call as the Hall of Pain. And so he was a destructive force, and it was probably the best point of his career. It was about a year and a half, consistent period of that, and he won the World Heavyweight Championship for the first time, and being there for almost 15 years, he finally captured that and was able to lead the SmackDown roster at the time. So Mark Henry, without a doubt, one of the most celebrated individuals in recent WWE history, and it's going to be good seeing him going to the WWE Hall of Fame. Continuing in with the Hall of Fame, I guess we could go on. There was more
so far, one inductor, right?
One inductors.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. I was going to get into that, actually, and it was the Dudley Boys are going in, and they will be inducted by their former rivals.
Yeah.
Former, what is it, like 9-time, 10-time?
So many tag title reigns.
So many tag title reigns. Edge and Christian. Edge is obviously already inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2011, I believe, or 12. And he and Christian will be inducting their former rivals. I mean,
I know there's a lot of people that really wanted Paul Heyman, though, to do it.
well, the history of ECW, obviously, the Dudley Boys started in ECW, and that's where they formed and captured their first tag team gold. They have 24 tag team titles between them, and Paul Heyman was the creator and mastermind behind ECW, so it would have made sense, but it also makes sense that the Dudley's probably most famous match was in the TLC, or the ladder match in 2000, WrestleMania 2000, followed by, SummerSlam, and the following WrestleMania, the TLC matches they had with Edge and Christian and the Hardys. So it makes sense that Edge and Christian would do that. Also, it could lead to some comedic moments.
Well, hopefully we see Spike finally.
Will we? Maybe. I don't know what he's been up to, so we'll have to see about that.
Yeah, but I know that there's rumor that supposedly the reason why Paul Heyman isn't going to do it is because they want him to induct Goldberg.
Really?
And I'm trying to think how were they associated?
Well, aside from the Brock Lesnar feud last year, I don't see how they're associated, really. It would make more sense if Eric Bischoff inducted Goldberg. I know Bischoff inducted who did DDP last year, so maybe they don't want to repeat it again. But there's probably a number of guys that could be inducted, inducting Goldberg. So I don't know. I haven't heard who would induct them. I know Hillbilly Jim wants Hulk Hogan to induct him, but I don't see that happening. Obviously controversial. Hogan's been kind of outed by the WWE, but they have been showing him more recently in video packages, so hopefully we'll see him soon. But yeah, that's the latest on Hall of Fame. No one else has been announced. I think this was the last one. Henry was the last one, so we have Goldberg as a headliner, so I think we can agree that's a really top pick.
Yeah.
We have Hillbilly Jim, a vital part of the rock and wrestling connection in the 80s. We have Ivory, who started out in Glow and was a legitimate women's wrestler before they got credited.
Her right to censor portion of her career was really something.
Right to censor, yeah, I mean, it even led her to a WrestleMania match against the 9th wonder of the world, China. So going back to that woman's evolution, we got to see her transition to a babyface into joining Right to Censor, which was a group that would censor everything in the Attitude Era. And she was very stern and very serious all the time. And it led her to being a women's champion. So, a very well-earned career for her.
And I mean, talk about someone
Induction.
who experienced an era where, in the 90s, obviously, pro wrestling objectified women,
Mhm.
and women have come a long way to be treated as equals now in professional wrestling. I mean, just imagine like all the years where they had these gendered terms where instead of just being called superstars like the men are, they were referred to as divas for so long.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in the start of the show, divas was a term until literally 4 years ago, I believe. 3 or 4 years ago. And so it was actually WrestleMania 32 when it was announced, so I guess technically 2 years ago. But yeah, essentially they were referred to divas and essentially used for eye candy and, you know, bra and panties matches and whatever, pillow fights, whatever, swimsuit competitions, and used just to attract, you know, the male audience. And it wasn't until recently that, you know, thanks to NXT, thanks to the Performance Center down in Florida, we're getting legitimate women's wrestlers. And there have been. I mean, we mentioned Ivory, you mentioned Jacqueline, Trish Stratus, Lita. They knew how to wrestle. They just didn't really have enough time to wrestle.
And for a very long time, like none of them like had the opportunity to compete with men. It was that idea that, oh, obviously, you know, a man and a woman can't fight together. But then those rare moments where all of a sudden, you know, China broke barriers.
China was one of those groundbreaking superstars. She was literally the 9th wonder of the world. Her height, she competed with men. She was the first woman to ever be in the men's Royal Rumble match in the late 90s. She was essentially helping carry D-Generation X with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. She was their bodyguard for the early part of it. She was a multi-time women's champion. She was an intercontinental champion where she feuded with one of the best wrestlers in the world, Chris Jericho. I know she had a thing with Eddie Guerrero. Again, another great wrestler. And yeah, she broke down what it meant to be just a diva and kind of went to being a legitimate superstar. At the time, they were still referred to as divas, but you know, she was a superstar.
The Glamazon.
Beth Phoenix was kind of, in a sense, kind of a hybrid of what China was. A very powerful, you know, individual who knew how to wrestle. But again, during her time, there wasn't a whole lot of action. I mean, she was a multi-time women's champion and Divas champion. She made her return last year for this year for the Mixed Match Challenge, being a commentator, as well as competing in the Royal Rumble match, the first ever for the women. And so Beth Phoenix kind of, again, continued that legacy that China created by being the only second woman to compete in the men's Royal Rumble match in 2010, eliminating the Great Khali.
And Jacqueline, I mean, she got to compete in the cruiserweight division.
Yeah, who did she beat for the cruiserweight? It was Chavo, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah, that was really something.
She defeated Chavo Guerrero, obviously a member of the legendary Guerrero name. And, I mean, yeah, Jacqueline was groundbreaking because she was, I believe, also in, like, strong women competitions. I don't know. I
think she arm wrestled people, too, in the ring.
Yeah, she's tough. I mean, she still is tough. If you saw her performance at the Royal Rumble this past year, you see that, yeah, she's older. She was the oldest one in that Rumble, but she was still taking down, you know, all the individuals in that match. She was a multi-time women's champion, and she was I believe, the only cruiserweight champion in WWE history. So that's impressive.
Talk about a belt that, you know, for a while it wasn't around, but it came back. But who knows? Maybe we'll see, you know, more women from the past return. I know that there was quite a bit of storylines, I guess, that, you know, people, you know, got to see the evolutions of characters. I mean, Stephanie McMahon was, you know, obviously nobody thought she was going to compete in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie McMahon was and is the daughter of Vince McMahon. Getting my names mixed up, but so she's the boss's daughter, and she made her debut on television in the late '90s, and eventually got together with Triple H, one of the biggest heels of all time, and currently, you know, the executive vice president of talent and live events in the WWE, responsible for NXT and such. But yeah, back in the late '90s, she was pretty big heel, and she is today still, but that's where she started in the late '90s with Triple H and the McMahon-Helmsley regime, as it was referred to. And she competed in matches against Jacqueline, and she defeated Jacqueline for the Women's Championship. So I believe she went into a WrestleMania as Women's Champion. So Stephanie is without a doubt an interesting character that's keeping kind of her father's heel legacy going. And, you know, we saw her return to action a few years ago against Brie Bella, and where she was successful at SummerSlam. And she'll be returning this WrestleMania, 18 days away, I believe 17 days away now, to go against, well, to team with her husband Triple H, to go against Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey in her debut match. So, which we have a lot to say about Ronda Rousey, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Ronda Rousey made, you know, obviously MMA famous, and she made her debut this past year at the Women's Royal Rumble match, where she made her intentions clear that she was going to head to WrestleMania and that she was a full-time WWE superstar moving forward. Her first match will be against Stephanie and Triple H in a mixed tag team match, which should be a lot of fun. What do you expect? I mean, to see from Ronda? Do you really expect? I heard she's pretty good at the Performance Center, so.
I mean, how interesting would it be if there was a heel turn, like, immediately? Like, she just leaves Kurt just high and dry and let Kurt lose.
Do you think we would see Ronda as a heel? I don't know.
That would be pretty, like, the good twist.
It would be. I don't know. But it might be too soon for that.
Because then you could introduce another, like, MMA fighter later.
Well, Shayna Baszler is in NXT.
Yeah.
Who's close to her, a member of the MMA's Four Horsewomen. She is in NXT dominating right now, and she's contending for the NXT Women's Championship. So I mean, we could see a heel faction eventually, but I don't know if they want to pull the trigger on that just yet. I think we're gonna see Shayna dominate in NXT a little longer before we see anything. So that's, I mean, you know, Ronda Rousey right now is kind of a moneymaker for WWE, so we could see her remain as a face for the foreseeable future. But yeah, that would be an interesting idea if we see her turn heel at Mania. It's been done before.
Yeah, I mean, the unpredictable is always the best thing for entertainment.
And unpredictable is, I mean, create some of the best moments in wrestling. And speaking of unpredictable, let's get into Monday Night Raw's first official kind of debut of the Ultimate Deletion storyline. Were you able to catch this?
No, but I mean, I read about it, and I think it's pretty interesting because the unique thing about Matt Hardy's gimmick is it makes it so easy to not have to go through complex storylines just to repackage someone.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can find this anywhere, I don't know if WWE has it up anywhere on their YouTube channel, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. And it is, you know, it received a mostly positive reaction, and there were some mixed reviews about it, but I thought it was a great start for this, you know, Hardy compound in WWE. We've seen it, used perfectly in TNA, and now we're seeing it in WWE, and it was just fun all around. We got to see the return of Brother Nero, and so that was a nice surprise there. I thought it was well executed. It started out, they showed a little bit of a preview earlier on Monday Night Raw, and it eventually led to Bray Wyatt arriving into the ring, being played, to his music by Rebby, Matt's wife, on the piano. So we get to hear a piano rendition of Bray Wyatt's theme song, which is pretty interesting. And they fought in the ring for a little bit, and then they moved out of the ring, and in front of, I believe it's called the obsolete territory or something like that, we got to see a little bit of a flashback to the Wyatt compound. So if you remember last year's storyline where Randy Orton burned down Bray Wyatt's cabin, there was actually a callback to that, and a flashback. So it was interesting that they were able to kind of combine the two and connect the universe into one. And so after that, then we get to see like the cemetery, which was very cartoonish.
Oh my gosh, I just thought of something. Remember when Bray, before he was Bray, he was rejected by Legacy? What was his original character's name? Can you imagine if he's coming back as that person?
No,
Husky Harris.
That was Nexus.
Right, Husky Harris.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that that's what he would come back as, but who knows? So, continuing, we're going to get to that right now. But continuing with that, they eventually led into some hilarious moments and ultimately ended at the Lake of Reincarnation, where Matt beat Bray Wyatt after a fun and ridiculous competition, but it was fun. And he was thrown into the Lake of Reincarnation, where he disappeared. And that was main event of Raw, which was pretty big. However, the live audience did not get to see that match. It was said that they actually got to see Elias versus Braun Strowman. They did not show the actual Ultimate Deletions. It was only for the TV audience, which is interesting. But yeah, you're right. Bray Wyatt has been deleted, and that's what's been going around. So I wonder how they would bring him back.
I know, and it would be interesting also if, let's say superstars who they've been around for a couple of years, they originally have a different character. I mean, just imagine throwing Dolph Ziggler in there, making him come back as Spirit Squad member.
Well, they could do that with the Lake of Reincarnation. You come back with their old gimmicks. I mean,
I know that there's talk that he wants to go after Michael Cole, but really, there's not much to say about him other than he'd come back with highlights.
Matt Hardy did. That was something that bothered me as well at the beginning. Before he apologized to the audience for what they were about to see. Something tells me that was a Vince McMahon move.
Oh man.
Because it was interesting that that kind of stuff is not for every wrestling fan, the casual wrestling fan at least. For those that have seen it in TNA and know the actual gimmick that's been, what it's been done, like me and you, we understand that it's ridiculous. It's gonna be ridiculous, but it's gonna be fun, and that's the point. And so, for anyone complaining about it, I think you really have to take it, in strides. You gotta take it one step at a time. And so, I thought it was really fun. And I wonder what's gonna happen in WrestleMania. What's next for Hardy and what's next for Wyatt?
There's so much to get into. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Did you know that the survivors are often blamed or feel ashamed about their assault?
We pledge to honor survivors who have broken their silence and support victims who have yet to find their voice.
Campus Sexual Assault Victims Advocate Services are located at the Women's and Gender Equity Center in LA 102 and can be contacted at 562-985-2668. Find more information at our website, www.csulb.edu/WGEC.
What's up, everybody? This is the host of Quality Time Radio, Dominic Colangelo. Tune in every Tuesday at 6 p.m. on 22 West Radio for some quality tunes.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. to Beyond the Ropes. Yes, for those of you watching the video version, you do not have to adjust your screens. We are in a new Type A format for video.
That's right, we now have 2 cameras. So they'll be seeing us back and forth.
Oh yeah, and not only that, I mean, talk about the innovativeness of film when it came to the NWO in the 90s.
Yeah, they went black and white, which it was interesting. I didn't know you were going to do that.
Yeah,
But
it's
that
the
was
last
cool.
minute.
That was really cool. I really liked that. So now we are in black and white, and NWO would cut a lot of their promos in that black and white because that was kind of that was their color, and they wanted it to be different, and they wanted it to be unique, and so we saw that in the late '90s, and it worked for them. So hopefully it'll work for us, maybe. And you can also follow us on Twitter or on social media at EthanNV95.
You can follow me at Rob Flores Media.
I think you included that in the last
Yeah.
week's video. So if you're watching the video, you'll see it there. But if you're listening to us, there you go. And you can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/BeyondTheRopes, where you can see our predictions for upcoming events, as well as, WrestleMania and any other videos and stuff we put,
Yes,
we like to
there's
put on there.
so many different videos. If you could see, I don't know if each camera could pick up a certain angle, but there's
We're on,
4 versions.
yeah, we're on YouNow. And is that Periscope?
Yes.
So we're on Periscope, YouNow. I don't know if we have anyone watching us, but hello there. WrestleMania is 17 days away.
Wow, I mean, obviously, stars are going to be disappointed if they make the kickoff show just because there's the whole, oh man, the specialness of, getting to be part of the card, but kickoff shows are a part of the pay-per-views.
These days, it's on the network.
Yeah.
It's all on the network. So regardless, you're gonna be on the network, and yeah, you're not gonna have as big as of an audience, but you still get to perform in that huge arena, and it's still in that setting. And so yeah, it's unfortunate that not everyone is gonna be able to get on the card,
Oh, yeah.
but there hasn't been any matches announced yet for the kickoff. I'm sure the ones that have been announced, there will be a few put down there, but
I think they've been mentioning that the Usos going to have a match.
hopefully it's not on the kickoff, because I
Yeah.
think that's the point of
It's
their
a rumored
entire
triple threat, I think.
between New Day and Bludgeon Brothers, correct?
Yeah.
So, but another match that we got was the Cruiserweight Championship match, Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali, which I
Wow.
was just watching right before we went on the air. Mustafa Ali and Drew Gulak for that spot. In a phenomenal match. If you're not watching 205 Live, you're missing some of the best action of the week.
I still can't get over the fact that, I'm so used to calling Rockstar Spud, and he's some other name.
He's Drake Maverick now. He's the general manager of 205 Live, and he's been doing a great job. But hopefully we see him in the ring someday.
This is my first time watching, both 205 Live and NXT yesterday, but talk about all the masked wrestlers now. There's starting to be a rise now.
I mean, there's a Lucha party.
Yeah.
The Lucha House party with Kalisto, Grand Metalik, and Lindsay Dorado. The latter were a part of the Cruiserweight Classic a few years ago, and they've been in the Cruiserweight division. Obviously, Kalisto joined late last year, and they've formed a group together. So, it definitely creates an interesting environment for factions and feuds. And right now they're in a kind of a tag feud between them and Akira Tozawa and Hideo Itami, which just started last week. So those are a few of the masked wrestlers. The current NXT champion, Andrade Cien Almas, who, as you mentioned, you saw
That
NXT.
dude has quite the accent.
Yeah, he's definitely still learning English, but he's
Very talented.
He's an extremely talented wrestler. If you haven't seen him, you're gonna be impressed. Watch his match at NXT Takeover this past Philadelphia. So it was the last one against Johnny Gargano, and many were saying that was gonna be the match of the year, and it wasn't gonna be topped. They went on for over 30 minutes, so watch that one, and he's a phenomenal wrestler.
I noticed that the way that Cien Almas' manager always gets involved.
So Zelina Vega, she's an asset to his character because for about a year he wasn't really doing much, and so once she came along and essentially became became his associate and spokesperson in a sense. She really brought the fire and intensity he needed to build his character up, and so it's without a doubt brought him that NXT championship and brought him to that main level where he needs to be and where he should be because he's that talented.
Who was he pissed off at?
Aleister Black. So you've heard of Aleister Black, correct?
I saw a little promo segment where they were like trying to he was like calling him out.
Right. But again, another individual who's extremely talented. There's a lot of people in NXT right now to look out for, but he is contending for the NXT Championship. He debuted last year's WrestleMania NXT Takeover or whatever. But yeah, he's taken the wrestling, NXT brand by storm as well. His unique character, he's covered in tattoos. His entrance is different than everyone else's. Watch his match against Velveteen Dream at NXT TakeOver War Games, because that was another great match. You gotta watch a lot of matches.
I mean, I know it was my first time watching NXT for that one, but I mean, obviously it's like the third brand, but I think the thing that stood out also was the finish of Roderick Strong. That finishing maneuver.
I believe it's the end of Heartache. Is that correct?
Wow.
That backbreaker. Well, he is the Messiah of the Backbreaker. That is his nickname. And he was teaming with Pete Dunne. So Pete Dunne, another individual who's just owning, especially the indie scene these days, because he is working back and forth. He is the second United Kingdom champion. And you mentioned, they work stiff. They work tough. And so when you mentioned Roderick Strong, he's without a doubt been kind of a breakout star in NXT the past year. And had a number of phenomenal matches. But he has yet to win a championship. So hopefully, the tag team championship is coming a long way.
Time goes by so fast. I can't believe we have only 3 minutes left right now.
Yeah, we're almost out of here. But should we get into some wrestling? Well, we've gotten into some WrestleMania talk. And what's left? We got some NXT talk. We mentioned Daniel Bryan. We mentioned the Ultimate Deletion. No Ronda Rousey on TV, but she was there after the show, from what I was told.
So we have break next week, but the week after,
That's
it's not
right.
WrestleMania
We're
yet,
gonna
right?
be up. No, wait. The week after it is WrestleMania.
But we'll still have a show before, or
We will have one show.
so that could be predictions then.
Yes, we'll have a day for predictions.
Definitely. Oh, I can't wait for this. Predictions is one of my favorite parts that we do.
Absolutely, and we'll get into discussions about that. That's gonna be a really good one because there's like at least 10 matches so far, and there's still some that aren't announced. But speaking of it, I mean, wrestling in Japan, there's gonna be a New Japan show this weekend, I believe.
Oh.
It's here on our campus.
Oh man, I wonder how that's gonna affect in the Ray match.
Ray is not competing anymore.
Oh man.
Ray has been replaced by Will Ospreay to face Jushin Thunder Liger. And that's right, it's going to take place here in the Walter Pyramid, Long Beach, California. I believe it's this weekend. I'm checking my schedule. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go.
The
It's sold out.
timing of the injury, wow.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio was scheduled. Yeah, it's 25th, so it's this weekend. But that should be fun. New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to be here in Long Beach, California. So it'll be on Access TV, I believe, on Sunday. And it'll be from 5 o'clock to 9 p.m. I don't know exactly when it will air on TV, specifically the time. But there, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, Rey Mysterio was supposed to be there, but I don't think he's scheduled to compete now. Jushin Thunder Liger, a bunch of great athletes, and that should be a really good show. So if you're a New Japan fan, be sure to check that out on Access TV or New Japan World, wherever you can see that. But we're just about out of here, correct? So again, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/BeyondTheRopes for all the videos and predictions and more.
And what's good? Monday, it's Raw, right? Next week.
Raw, what do we have to look for? We don't really know. It's more WrestleMania build. So, the aftermath of Brock and Roman. We didn't really talk about that, but we could get into it more next week or the following week. There won't be a show next week, correct? So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And this episode, it's been too sweet, but it's also going to be
Definitely.
deleted. and obsolete. See you guys.